in real life just said, "Yeah, man, education is elevation." You there, bro? You there? But we live,
That's how I
man.
say.
We
Education is
live.
elevation, man.
Yeah, man. What's good with y'all? Toya giving all
So
type
I'm
of
really
vibes
trying to,
right
really
now. Like,
trying
what
to
you doing with
just,
your hair?
I don't
Trying to
know.
figure it
yeah.
out.
Hey, Toya, hey, what you moisturize your hair with?
A combination of
Coconut
peppermint black
oil.
tea tree oil, uh, no, peppermint black Jamaican castor oil, tea tree oil, argan oil, and coconut oil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey,
Like
y'all
all
know what
together
to
at once.
You've seen me use that little yellow spray bottle for a decade now. Still rolling, still with me heavy.
yo, and as they get that cracking, as they figure out how to keep them locks luscious,
What's up,
y'all
Jalisa?
make sure y'all say what's up as y'all come in here. We got Jaleesa in the building first. Thank you, Jaleesa, for joining us. See the family. See the family right there. There's the See the Nationals going on. Again, this is the tournament, the championship tournament season of collegiate debate. Y'all know we gave y'all the breakdown on Toya's teams, NDT, that's Cal State University Fullerton. Uh were they quarterfinalists or they
They
was
were quarterfinalists at the NDT.
quarterfinalists at the NDT, the National Debate Tournament. The Cross Examination Debate Association Tournament is taking place right now.
Yeah,
Toya's team again made it extremely far. Semifinals,
top four.
top four, final four of CETA before they were, you know, sent home. But great showing.
Another close decision. It was a 2-1. So I know. I'm sorry.
Another,
It was a take that back. It was a 4-1. So we got a ballot out of it. Somebody believed.
yeah, yeah.
Somebody believed.
It was more like a ballot, like she said, you know what I'm saying. But that's
Somebody
love though.
believed.
That's amazing. So it's amazing to see again because like we do this in real life. Toya is a for real
All weekend long.
debate coach.
We've been going since Friday morning.
For real. You know what I'm saying? So
And my team, you know what I'm saying, we battled it out. We made it all the way
I
into
forgot George for the
Saturday.
team.
You feel me? Had two teams, you know, we young, you feel me? We young, you know what I'm saying? My debaters is young, we're real young.
Yeah, yeah.
Right
Pinky,
now, you feel me?
we
You
got Noel in the building. Pinky Promise Life in the building. India Taylor from Maryland. What part
From
of Maryland?
Maryland.
What part of Maryland? You know what I'm saying? You know, you gotta ask.
From
You know
Maryland.
what I'm saying? But we got a quick conversation to get in with y'all today, man. Uh of course, there's always tragedy to deal with. I mean, you know, black people, we always working through it. And we're gonna help y'all. We're gonna help y'all work through some of it today. But we're gonna end it on a more positive note because there like things there
yeah.
are certain things that are looking up. You know what I'm saying? So y'all stick with us. It may be a heavy conversation for a little bit, but then we're gonna lighten it up. We're gonna lighten the mood. You know what I'm saying? Okay, St. Mary's County. St.
St.
Mary's
Mary's
County.
County, let's
St.
get to
Mary's
the
County.
conversation, man. I know we in a little
Virginia
late,
was
you feel
popping.
me? Shout out to everybody tuned in, you know. Yeah, man, I'm ready, man. We can go on and get it jumping. We can go and get it started
Yeah.
though. You know, play our intro music. Shout out to everybody tuned in.
Well, listen, y'all know George is clearly in a rush, folks. So here we
I'm
go.
just, you know,
Me, my guys, we really lie. Lord, forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside. And that's in the console. Keep the semi when I ride. Lit off Henny when I drive. In the city, we gon' slide. Bet I be there pronto.
Here we go. Yo, we didn't talk about this, but fuck it. Let's get it. This is the chop up.
it's the chop up.
Yeah, I am
Chop up shizzle.
Damo, the political plug, and I am here with that's my son. He's here too. Y'all say hey to Huey, by the way. Go ahead.
What up, y'all? It's your girl Toya G tapping in with you on a Monday night. It's been a long weekend. But I'm happy to be in here with y'all. We got some business to talk about. But hopefully, we'll have some good time to spend together to kick off y'all's week. What's good? Welcome, welcome.
Well,
And then we do have a celebrity
You
in the
know,
building.
man, I don't go that far. But listen, education is elevation. It's George Lee, aka Conscious Lee. Don't forget to lead GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. Got some free classes coming our way in May. Lock in, tune in with us.
Yeah, yeah. Y'all know how it go. And we are here on another Monday to get your week started right. Some good conversation, man. Deal with some of the things that we've been going through. And just to go ahead and get it started, you know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and start dealing with this now. We do have some tragedy to discuss here in Snapchat. Go ahead and handle that, Toya.
Yeah, man, we got to. So what we know is that yesterday, about 10 miles from where Derek Chauvin trial was going on, Daunte Wright was shot down by police officers. We know that police say that he was pulled over for a license plate or expired registration. His mom said something about his air freshener kind of being in the windowsill and blocking some information, and that's one of the reasons why he got pulled over. He turned out to have an arrest. He tried to flee. He was shot. This happened in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. This is what's happened in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Just with the current climate of our country and it being so close in proximity to where George Floyd was murdered. What is y'all Rita's initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts, because I mean, those are some of the details. I also heard a couple more layers to it. First, to add to why he got pulled over, which is why this becomes so exhausting, is it's just another example of recklessness, heinous mischaracterizations of criminality, and just negligent approaches to commandeering the law. So let's talk about a couple more facts to just kind of allude to more to what Lee was talking about. First of all, he had apparently his license plate was expired, which is why he got stopped. Right, that triggered the stop. The reason they continue to go ahead and press and search and do a whole lot more as opposed to just letting it go is because upon stopping him, they saw the air freshener hanging. Now, a lot of people been like, what's the uniqueness with this air freshener? People have them all the time. What's the big deal? Uniquely I don't know if it's the state of Minnesota or just that county or in that city, it's illegal to have things hanging, air fresheners, you put your little ID. I know I work on the campus, and so I have my parking pass up there, apartment parking passes. You can't really have anything posted hanging up there. But the thing is, that law is very rarely applied, right? So then that continued on down to stopping him. Then you see two different, the famous saying, try not to break more than one law at one time. Now you have two violations. So they looked into his record. That's when they find out about a lot of these delinquent charges that he has, because he has a warrant out for his arrest. But it's over menial stuff. I think it's like a misdemeanor weed possession charge. It's a missing a court date charge. It was Zoom court. They sent I think you said before the show.
Zoom court. Yeah, Zoom court. They sent it to the wrong court. I allegedly sent the Zoom link and the court information to the wrong address that is public record. Allegedly.
And then was missing $300. I mean, I think the fine was $400. Right. So when you start to really, it's one thing because, a tweet I retweeted earlier, and I will stand by this and live by this because it just so eloquently articulates it, is fleeing the police is not a crime punishable by immediate execution. So people will say, well, he committed crimes. Well, he tried to get away. Well, fine. Let him get away. Let him go and pursue them if you like, depending on y'all's jurisdictions and y'all. But to shoot to kill, and then of course, this is my favorite part. Of course, the officer who did it thought she was reaching for her taser actually had her hand on the gun. Talk about incompetence, right? And so it's just so many things wrong with this, and I'm tired. You asked how I felt, knowing the facts that I know, tying together what I know about shit. I'm tired. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, and I definitely echo that sentiment. But what I'm kind of looking forward though, and not looking forward in terms of like optimism with anything, but in terms like more so how this Derek Chauvin trial is going to impact what's happening right now, because ultimately the idea behind, we talked about this a little bit last week, was that blue wall, that blue veil is crumbling just a little bit, right? Like you see officers willing to take the stand against other officers. That's not something that we've witnessed, especially during the what we would call the age of Black Lives Matter. You feel me? And so, given, as Toya spoke to, the gross incompetence the gross incompetence, talking about not being in a position to make that type of mistake. You feel me? On top of the more, what is it, responsibility and the more culpability that's being placed on individual officers for making bad decisions, right? I think this is where the Derek Chauvin dominoes start to fall, because we knew it was going to be something like that, like this was going to happen again, right? Like we all know that even though we spectacularize instances of state sanctioned violence, this is actually very normal, right?
Yeah,
very normal.
See what I'm saying?
It's so normal that, again, there's a trial going on for a similar occurrence happening in the city just a few miles where this occurred.
Now a bit more, and that's what makes it so unique, because what Derek Chauvin did was a bit more gratuitous, right? Derek Chauvin was like he went the extra mile to take a man's life. This was an instance of again, incompetence. Now, I see this being one of the instances where they attempt to distance her from Derek Chauvin. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to who like mainstream society wants you to understand as the bad guy, they only look to the extremes, right? We all recognize that it is the more nuanced, more normalized aspects of racialized violence that is the most dangerous, because we've kind of not only have we internalized it, like we're numb to it. So we like even us talking about the shit, like knowing that there would be another instance of police killing killing black people. Yeah. Even saying that alone, how easy that was for me to just say that. Anybody else, that would be terrifying. But because we live with that reality every day, it's one of them instances where you see the powers that be showing Derek Chauvin as the bad guy. He's the one you don't want to be. We're against him. What he do is completely incorrect. And then making that distinction between this was an accident. Mm-hmm. This was not something that was deliberate. Like she really made, I mean, from the perspective of what's being discussed, she really made a mistake, allegedly. You know what I'm saying? And so we like they did with Donald Trump, right? When they was like, that's the racist, him, right? They're gonna do the same thing with Derek Chauvin. And watching this case develop, and even though we can see instances of, like I was saying, that blue wall crumbling, they gotta have the bad guy. They gotta have that's who you point the finger to. You know what I'm saying? And Derek Chauvin is gonna be that, and this is gonna be an instance of like, nah, that shit ain't normalized. That shit don't happen. This was just an accident.
I don't know. I think when we look at kind of the direction of the conversations, I think what you're talking about, this blue wall crumbling, I look at Jada's comment and I think they're right? Is the blue wall crumbling, or are they willing to sacrifice one offer to preserve the institution? And I think that's where we are, right? I think this logically plays into, and this is why I'm not moved by this being a significant rift or change in the way that the system functions, is because I think you reorient, you recalibrate for new situations and new operating environments, right? Now that your feet are being held to the fire, you are going to have to be more sacrificial about it, because you saw they turned up as much as they possibly could last night in Minnesota. I love people in Minneapolis because they ready for go time, right? I remember thinking and talking about when George Floyd popped up, our ignorance disallows for us to understand just how many Black people is up there, not to mention the largest population of Muslims in this country, right? So it's all types of just Black folk walking around that thing.
And also one of the more heavily segregated communities in America.
Exactly. Right. And so, I mean, I don't know if y'all saw the pictures, but the National Guard and the police was out there and they ready because they know it's go time. I say all that to say it's understood in this country that it's go time. And so without black folks is tired. So I say all that to say they're going to sacrifice. They're going to cut a couple people loose. They're going, especially if you do something foolish like this. Like I didn't get to watch the interview with the police chief, but he already sounded like just we messed this one up. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no defense. There's no attempt to try to explain it or to wait for later details or to do whatever. He's just like, that was bad. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely see the sacrificial approach to this shit for real. What was you about to say, Lee?
I see that. I seen that. I forgot about to say, but I know. Now that I'm thinking it's about it or whatever. Just the hypocrisy of thinking about he didn't conform to the law. He should have stopped this, that, and the other, and then thinking of how he don't get to live to see his court date. But thinking about all the people that on, I'm saying January 6th that stormed the state capitol, that obviously broke the law, that obviously wasn't conforming to the law, that lived to see their court date, that's getting, you feel me, a whole bunch of privileges while they go wait to see their court date, and to see that he didn't get to see his court date on something that's way less severe in terms of the law.
Well, to add a little bit of nuance to that though is like actually a lot of the arguments and we can move on after I say this. It's not that important, but in terms of the people from the insurrection, a lot of those people are actually arguing that the circumstances that they are having to deal with seem extreme given what it is that they were convicted of doing, right? Or not convicted, but accused of doing. And so here you see people who really stormed the government, right? Like literally on some revolution type shit with stun guns and plastic cuffs, and they're arguing that they're being treated too harshly because they're being told that they have to stay in jail. While we sit here and again have to hear people make excuses for why it was okay to shoot a person on accident. Like, because the fact that they would go to the fact that like the police are saying it was an accident. It wasn't he scared us. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying, we did the wrong thing. But people are still willing to say, well, he had a warrant.
Accidents.
Yeah. So
accidents, man. Well, I think just wrapping this out. Yeah, we know that when it comes to Daunte Wright and the countless other different Black people, that regardless of what the Constitution says in terms of, you know, unfair punishment, cruel and unusual punishment, you know what I'm saying, for, you know, unjust crimes, supposed to be unconstitutional, but we see time after time again that this is kind of the positions that Black people are put in America. And I feel like if you think globally and act locally, you'll see that globally that a lot of Black people, you know what I'm saying, are also being, you know, kind of exterminated and or locked up for the same exact things, little with nothing, sometimes anything. So, you know, tip light out there and just recognize too. I see somebody comment about them not wanting to let their kids go somewhere without them because they got sons or whatever. I feel like I know me and Toya and Damo, what we know about Afro pessimism is you got to be able to find you a little bit of social life and social death. And I feel like because the world is anti-Black, because the world is racist, because the world is structured with some white supremacist shit, I feel like, you know what I'm saying, you can't allow for that to kind of rob you of your quality of life in ways where you start to really, I feel like internalize it, you feel me? So I feel like, you know, tip light, keep it groovy like an Austin Powers movie, and just remember, you feel me, you Black regardless of you in the house or not. And that's on Atiana Jefferson in Botham, Beijing.
Facts. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it, man. That was a snap chop. And again, we're gonna keep it, it's gonna be a little heavy real quick. It's gonna be a little heavy, you know what I'm saying? But you know, we have to handle it the way we're supposed to handle it. And to get into this culture chop, we talking about DMX. Recently, he lost his life, as well as a long-lasting fight with something that plagues a lot of people in Black communities, and that's addiction. But due to an overdose, DMX was placed in a vegetative state this past week, and he went from, and his condition deteriorated, and we lost Dark Man X. And so briefly, one of the more interesting things that came out of our mourning of DMX, like the hip hop community as a whole, because like we already know when you say stop, drop,
shut them down, open up shop.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's how Rough Riders roll.
We was all Rough Riders for a day. We was all Rough Riders for a day. You know what I'm saying? Now, the interesting thing that came out of that, and I want y'all to touch on it a little bit more because I didn't even know that this was a conversation. But watching somebody like DMX, somebody who had a huge impact on the culture, like really can't. I mean, you're talking about and this isn't an exaggeration, but type of Nas, Jay-Z, in terms of the music, business side, but in terms of the music, had that type of impact. You know what I'm saying? During the time when they was running shit. Somebody that we saw, that we watched kind of fall into dire straits. He dealt with addiction, a very public battle with addiction. Had a couple episodes on the Yana Fix My Life. I mean, it was all of these things that we saw play out publicly. And as somebody who impacted the culture the way the DMX impacted the culture, you always ask the question like, damn, how does one of our legends end up, you know what I mean, in those type of circumstances? And from that conversation, there started to be a discussion of a hip hop union. Now y'all could talk on this a bit more briefly because I ain't hearing nothing about that. A hip hop union. Who brought it up?
I don't know. I honestly came across tweets about it from people who are not necessarily popular, and I also think there was somebody else. There is somebody, like, I want to say.
I seen Master P talk about it.
Master P, but there's also another artist, like maybe Pharrell, maybe Nas, maybe somebody like that who was kind of up there too, who was talking about a union, right, for artists who lose a lot of money. Now, one thing that you should understand about these unions and why they're necessary in hip hop, you might be saying, now these niggas is in videos throwing money, they got this, that, they buying cars and doing jewelry and had great nights, and I'm watching people on my feed, they don't need a union, they should be more careful with their money. And DMX actually had a video that I came across about this, where he talks about how much it costs to be a hip hop artist, how much it costs to pay for managers and for photo shoots and for video shoots and for cars and for entourages and for people who you legitimately need to be a part of your team because you can only be one person, and why he got into movies, because hip hop couldn't touch that movie money. Right, so when we started to see him in Cradle to Grave, when we started to see him in Belly, when we started to see him in Romeo Must Die,
Romeo Must Fuck. Even though he got killed in Romeo Must Die, I thought that was the most I was mad at Aaliyah. How y'all killed DMX in Romeo Must Die?
It's terrible, but what we do know is that he lived in real life and walked away with the check and a story to tell about it, right? And so,
bag. Yeah.
A huge
exit wounds.
I mean, his catalog is probably deeper than. I mean, he's done spots on TV shows and all types of stuff, right? And so, all of this to say, the justification for unions has been, people really have to spend more money to keep this thing afloat and get it going than people really understand and anticipate. And money comes in, but money goes out. And so, to keep that flow stable later on in somebody's career, where they could be subject to an industry that puts you in the position to exacerbate addiction, put you in a position to potentially go broke, put you in a position to acquire a whole bunch of debt, that there should be a bigger set and better safety net for people like him to exist. And so I rock with that logic. I rock with the logic. I don't know what it would look like structurally, but we hear 1,000 times over how record companies are just so terrible and how they get over on artists and how, you know what I'm saying, you got to be really out here hitting the ground running. You got to be damn near Nipsey Hussle in order to not get got in the game. And so when I think about that type of shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, Nip talked a whole lot about the money he had stacked up, the approach that he took, and why, and how he was able to provide for generations.
Appreciating assets.
Yeah. And so I think it's interesting, and I think it's something that's necessary to make sure that our leaders and our elders get to grow old and have success when they do it.
George?
Man, I think it'd be possible by borrowing for some of the structures that the NFL and NBA provides in terms of how they're able to take care of the people that, you know what I'm saying, like retire or whatnot. You feel me? Almost make it where if you're able to be active or sell a certain amount of records, something like that, you feel me? You're able to get a part of those proceeds. That's what I think, something like that. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we get you.
Yeah. But I feel like, you know what I mean, something like that. And I seen him talk about this. This was an interview for people that want to watch this interview. It was him sitting on the couch at 106 in Park. I feel like he had on like a army fatigue type of outfit. You feel me? He was talking about why he was retiring. He was saying that the music industry, like pretty much the companies don't give them the same revenue cuts that he feel like he deserved and they earned. And he was saying that all the expenses that the artists have to go to, they have to pay for their own studio time, pay for the tour bus, pay for the studio. Pay for the video, pay for all these different things as part of the expenses. And then at the end of the day, when they the one that's pretty much creating the art, the industry, the companies is the main one getting the bigger of the revenue shares. You know what I'm saying? So he felt like he needed more of those. And I think that what DMX, I feel like for all of the aspiring content creators out there, I feel like we should really be thinking about and going back and visiting what a lot of the entertainers and artists that came before us, and thinking about a lot of the business practices that they kind of critiquing, and making sure we keep in mind that the industry that we're going in right now and being a content creator, or whatever we want to call it, it's a new industry. Social media is a new industry. So we don't. So I think that, and I feel like most people that, you know what I'm saying, when they're dealing with me in terms of business, I don't allow for any people to use a lot of those horrible ass business practices from the rap industry or from this industry and copy and paste them into, you know what I'm saying, dealing with me. It's like, nah, you got to be recognize that because it's so new, you really trade new waters, and you get to kind of dictate, you feel me, what the revenue share is going to be, what the intellectual property going to be, what the content rights going to be, and shit like that. You feel me? You can walk away and deuces. You feel me? And that's what Nipsey Hussle was talking about, and that's what Master P talk about, and that's what, you feel me, a lot of the black entrepreneurs talk about, being able to walk away.
I think that's extremely important, because in every industry.
No, you good.
Oh yeah, my fault. So
Well, no, I was gonna say, I think it's. The only thing I was gonna say is I do think it's interesting to have because I think about basketball unions, right? Sports unions.
The players associations.
Pinky Promise wife talked about actors having SAG unions and all types of stuff like that. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all. One of the biggest concerns I have is not only the competitive nature of hip hop, but also because, you know, and the unlikelihood of people working in the same interest, but also because that beef is not just financial. Sometimes it should be street based, to be political. So it's it's gonna be hard to organize rappers into a union because you got a whole lot of layers of. I'm not willing to sit down with that nigga at the table with that nigga because what flag he you know he repping that he been repping for the last 15 years. Like, I'm not willing to sit with him because he's from this part of my state or my city, whatever. And so I think that the idea of it sounds interesting, but you know, I don't want to
romanticize.
Not even this. I don't want to attach any negative colloquialisms onto what hip hop is, but it is kind of like the Wild Wild West in terms of how it functions and how it works. It's not as organized as other industries. So it's gonna be very hard to rein it in and organize it in that type of way. But
I think that comes to a question of holding responsible the people who are making the most money from it, right? I mean, ultimately the culture. I ain't gonna say we are not rapper. I mean, I put out a mixtape back in the day, but you know what I'm saying? We content creators in a different direction. You feel me? But ultimately, what we saw is these artists actually allow for this. It's like a contractor type relationship, right? We only use you for the contract, as far as and those contracts are always limited, as opposed to, like, say, you know, a steel workers union where your employment is as long as you are meeting the requirements for employment. You feel me? And so it's like, as long as you're meeting the requirements, then you're good. But because you're a contract, like in terms of when we're talking about labor, and we ain't gonna spend too much time on this because it's getting away from it. But in terms of a hip hop union, when you're talking about labor and who's paying for the labor, who's receiving the most for the labor, the industry is, the way that it's ran by record companies, is all contractor based. So we sign a contract, you meet the requirements of the contract, and then the relationship is done. The flip side to the contract is that the company owes you no more or no less than what's outlined in that contract. So ultimately, if you're not protected in the contract that you initially signed, the company has no liability over towards what you're doing anyway. And so in order for a hip hop union to become possible, rappers, the talent, the laborers, like we can even go and take the language that far, they have to develop different relationships and what they're requiring from labels in order for the labels to be able to, you know what I'm saying, profit off of their labor. You know what I mean? And that's what's most important when it comes to that. And so when George talk about changing the relationship that content creators have and looking at what they doing, they also got to look at that how the hip hop industry has been from, you know what I'm saying, its beginnings to now, in the way that it can't continue that same way. And we sit here and watch people like DMX suffer without any type of without the foundation of the people he made the most money for. Right. Now moving the conversation along, though, a lot of the conversation that you saw on social media in terms of asking a question, which is something that we typically do when we lose somebody that we have an appreciation for, is ask, how did we get to this point? And when you're dealing with somebody that dealt with addiction, not only do you look at the person that dealt with the addiction, but you look at the people around them in terms of responsibility. And when it came to who should the conversation of who should have done more, I think that's a fair assessment to make, or a fair question to ask the people that were close to DMX, given like the way that this is, like, these types of things are very personal. People make personal decisions that lead to a particular way. Is it fair to ask them that? Or is it fair to pose that question that y'all should have done more? Or ask the question, what more could y'all have done?
Like,
I say yes and no. I know that any type of addiction, having a support system is going to be very key in how you deal with that addiction and how you know what I'm saying, being able to, I feel like, create healthy habits and create, you know what I'm saying, healthy environments, you feel me, for yourself to be able to thrive and not kind of fall off the horse, metaphorically. But I don't want to be paternalizing in a way to make it where you take responsibility and accountability from the person that is, you feel me, dealing with addiction. But I also think that one of the things that happens, not only in the Black community, but I feel like real large in society, that we usually don't approach addiction from a perspective of thinking about it as a sickness, or a perspective of thinking about it as a disease. You know what I'm saying? I think that we usually kind of criminalize and or chastise people with a whole bunch of self-righteousness and kind of, I feel like, the wrong way in terms of talking about responsibility and accountability. So yeah, yes and no. Hope that answers the question.
I think it does. And I want to agree. I think the only thing I might add to what Lee said is that, or even differ, because I don't think that anybody in his immediate life is responsible for the issues that he's experienced. And the reason why is that the ultimate person who is to blame for this, especially in DMX's instance, all stories of addiction don't play off like this, but y'all realize and gotta remember that he was hooked on drugs because somebody he trusted, a mentor, somebody who he was in the care of, laced the blunt of his and put crack in it. You know what I'm saying? When it was just supposed to be a little weed. Now you smoking weed with a 14-year-old. This is in the 70s, early 80s, right? So that's maybe how
early 80s. He was born in 1970.
How you build relationship and kinship with your people is your business, but to know that you got this little small mind, this brain, this future in your hands, and you lay something, give it to him, and then I think he goes back and forth. I watched the interview where he asked, why do you do this to me? Why you give it to me? He was just, I thought it was something to do. You know what I'm saying? I thought it would be cool. And now you got somebody addicted for the rest of their lives. So any person who is responsible and should feel bad and accountable for what life DMX has experienced in terms of addiction is the person who created that pathway. You know what I'm saying? And that's what frustrates me, is that people forget, going along with what Lee said, that every bad thing you see in somebody has a starting place. It has an introduction point. It has something that you can't speak to because you wasn't there to really understand how prolific that impact and that influence was on that person and the hold they got on them. And so you look at DMX and say, why didn't you do something? Why did you do something? Who stole the cookies from the cookie jar? I can't stop a nigga from going to a garage and going to a basement and doing what he go. I can't stop a nigga on tour who's gone for 6 months at a time and say, now don't you, and knowing the stresses that come with this, that, and the other, you'd be surprised when he may succumb to those types of pressures. You gotta go back to where it started. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and to another one before you go, I seen another interview for somebody that's talking about how hard he grew up in terms of his mom like dropping him off at a boys' home and telling him he was going to go visit, or telling him he was just going there, and dropped him off and never came back to get him for, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. And he was the youngest there, and he had to fend for himself. So it started creating that monster in him where he had to fight for himself or whatever. So just hearing about the trials, tribulations, and all the trauma and stress he went throughout his life, I know that most times people that go through addiction, they're trying to get through some stress and trauma. And that's, you feel me, one of the things I feel like we got to deal with it as a community. You feel me? It's a lot of stress and trauma and pain that go on in our community and suffering. And a lot of people kind of cope with it with drugs, and it turns into drug addiction.
Yeah, I mean, and we're gonna touch on that. We're gonna touch on more of that in a little bit. But I do think that because I've always had a weird like addiction. I lost one of my uncles, one of my mother's youngest brother, to addiction. Oh, well, he was older than her, but the youngest of her brothers, he died of an overdose. And is when you was like, it's both. yes and no. You know what I'm saying? I tend to agree with you because I do think that in terms of it being other people's responsibility, it's not. It's not that. But in terms of people having a responsibility towards the people that they care about when they dealing with something like addiction, I do think it's important that we look at it as we look at it as something that as a specifically with people you care about, it's something that you deal with together. Because watching somebody battle addiction is extremely difficult. And a lot of times you feel like it's your responsibility because you see people asking questions, what like the people that's close to them, what did I do wrong? What's more of something that I could have done? And so having that type of orientation towards people with addiction is extremely important.
We
But
also, my bad.
yeah, no, go ahead. So you can
I was
chime in
gonna
real
say,
quick. I know what I'm gonna say next. You can chime in real quick.
got you. I also just want to add in too that we can't forget to look at the systemic and structural influences of those things as well. It's the same thing when we talk about gun violence in our communities, whether it be Black and brown communities or whether it be just in mass shootings. If we talk about drug abuse and addiction, we got to talk about we got when I don't know how to make a gun, don't got the materials, don't got all the pieces, don't got all the stuff. 9 times out of 10, people with guns go buy them from places because you don't just walk around. There's no gun factories.
Right.
Just in Black communities waiting to crank them out so we can go pull up and buy one. So where did the guns come from? The crack epidemic was an epidemic. It affected our communities, right? I can even talk about the person who gave them the drugs, but when we talk about who got the drugs, when nobody just growing cocaine in their backyard. That came from over yonder somewhere, and niggas ain't got the connects over yonder.
Nigga, you had to have a plane, a boat, a farm,
and a plug, and you still got to know somebody. So when it's all
shout out to Oliver North.
when it's all said and done, we really are
Cocaine Mitch.
Hey, right. What's my name? Griselda Blanco. What's it?
Yeah. Cocaine Cowboys. Yeah.
Make sure y'all check that out, just for history's sake. But we can't forget about those influences on, these people's lives as well. So when we point fingers, we got to make sure we always point back at the state because they always got something to do with it.
Right. But ultimately, what you got to understand is that anybody around the person can only play a support role. Because like what's going on up here, you can't change that. Like ultimately, people got battles that they gotta fight themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we see victories and we see defeats. You know what I mean? Like there's never like when you're dealing with addiction, once you overcome it, it's never just okay, I overcame it, I'm good. Right? It's a ongoing battle. It's a fight that you always fighting. And sometimes, you lose the fight. Sometimes you come up short.
It's true.
You know what I mean? And but ultimately, the people around them can't be held responsible because that fight is up to that individual. And I'm gonna say that real quick. I'm gonna put the pin in. That fight has to be left up to that individual. So in the question of responsibility, I think we all kind of agree that while there's a role that somebody got to play for somebody in that position, they have to fight that fight. Can't nobody fight it for them. But as we get into this conversation of addiction and mental health, like the impact that or the like kind of like the relationship that those two had, I think both of y'all kind of spoke to trauma and the relationship that has with addiction. Now, I want to ask y'all though, like what are some of the earliest experiences that y'all came or the earliest interactions that y'all came in like when y'all were younger with addiction?
My earliest interaction experience rather with addiction was, I think, in the context of my uncle. I have an uncle on my mother's side, my mother's father's side, so my grandpa. And one of her brothers was in an institution that was in the city, and so we would always drive by. Sometimes she would stop. We would go spend weekends. A lot of different. I just have memories of being a child and seeing my uncle. And my mama always told me, "Listen, let me tell you about your uncle and what happened to him. He was." Classic story of a music prodigy. I think he played a bunch of instruments, but specifically played like the trumpet or something like that. Badass dude on the trumpet, whatever. Went to college, went to Lincoln University a couple years early, which is a HBCU in Missouri. Went to LU first year there, smoked something with somebody, She's like, he lost his mind, just never got it back again. And I've not revisited that to see and get, because that was a kid version, a kid way of explaining it. So to now be an adult and get the particularities and see what she knows, I don't. But it was a classic case of somebody with a whole bunch of potential who was, out living life young, trusted the wrong person, and changed his whole life, and it never changed back again. And so he spent the rest of his life until he passed away. I was probably in high school or college when he passed away, but until he passed away in that place, and I remember it all the time because, as somebody who, went to college, lived a life, seen a lot of things, whatever, I was always definitely nervous about those possibilities because we know that addiction can be, in some ways hereditary, or at least both innate and learned. It could be something that's biologically with you and something that you learn based on the environments that you in. So was always super just kind of on guard because of his story.
Yeah, George.
You lose Lee? George, what about you?
I mean,
hey, first, because it's an echo, bro. Go ahead and connect your mic. Yeah, and get your headphones. So while George get everything connected, because I got you on mute real quick, bro, just so we don't hear the echo. Like I said, I got to tell people all the time, like I was raised by drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? So my relationship with addiction was weird because I had, like I said, my uncle, where I am in California, my uncle overdosed when I was a child. So, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy that I'm even here. You know what I mean? Kind of like, and where my roots are, because I had no idea when I moved out here, but my family, my mother grew up out here and everything, and the city that I live in, my uncle overdosed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was all on top of, hearing these constant conversations. Because again, I was raised by drug dealers. So the rule was never get high off your own supply.
Mm-hmm.
Don't touch it. I think one of the more unique things about that movie Get Rich or Die Trying with 50 Cent was when the way that he displayed what it meant, or when he learned the rules of crack cocaine, it was you don't use this, you sell it, you don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my relationship with addiction was, you don't want to be a crackhead, like period. like we grew up knowing about what crackheads were, what they looked like. You know what I'm saying? Like they was on the street begging for money, like washing people's car. They'll do anything. They'll steal anything, whatever. You don't want to be them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You want to be the hustler. Like if you're going to be anything. Because drugs were so prevalent in Black communities. Like, remember, we products of the I was born in the 80s, I was born in the 90s, but we all products of the 90s and the impact of the crack epidemic. You know what I'm saying? The cocaine era. Or not even cocaine era, but the crack era. You feel me? And so ultimately we all come from different backgrounds in terms of, what that era was like. But for me, it was one of those things to where I don't want none of this. I don't want to be a crackhead, or I don't want to be, you know what I'm saying, the person that's selling it. Right. You feel me? And so it wasn't until I got to college that, that I even tried certain things, because I didn't drink alcohol in high school.
Exactly.
I didn't smoke anything in high school. I didn't do nothing, because I saw that people who engage in these types of things here get stuck here. And that was the one thing that I was like, I don't want to stay in Kansas City. So if I start doing any of these things, I'm gonna end up staying here. And so it's kind of it was a fucked up motivator, but it's the reason why I went to college and did other shit with my life, because it was like I don't want to be that, because I've seen what that does. I've seen up close and personal what that do to people.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, but I grew up with a family full of addiction, full of addicts and hustlers. So I didn't got to see the monetization of the addiction, got to see the suffering of addiction. You feel me? My grandmother, you know what I'm saying, was a crackhead my entire life. You feel me? May she rest in peace. You know what I mean? My mother has battled addiction throughout, you know what I'm saying, a lot. You feel me? And shit, yeah. Addiction has been throughout my 30 years of living, say the least.
I was just thinking, like, when we think about people who are close to us, One of the things about addiction that we don't end up talking about is people, they be high most of the time, but a lot of times you know the real them. You know who they really are. You get glimpses, even when they hide, you get glimpses of their real personality. And I think as I got older, it was another man in my grandma's neighborhood name, and I'm no bullshit, y'all. To this day, I don't know why they called this man this, but his main name was Buttermilk Man. Like literally, you see Buttermilk Man, Buttermilk. Like you got to say all of it. Like his name was Buttermilk Man, but he got real raspy voice, real. So unkept hair. I won't say unkept, but fro all different types of directions. Put on what he put on. Probably the same thing you've seen it for the last 2 or 3 weeks, whatever. But the kind is like my mom and them was never like, don't talk to Bud, because they knew him. He grew up in my grandma's neighborhood, so I think my mom and them aunties and uncles knew him before he probably really underwent a change.
Right. I mean, they all probably grew up together. Like they grew up knowing him. Yeah,
exactly. But it was almost like but we know Buttermilk Man ain't gonna let nothing happen to these kids. He ain't gonna bother them. He whatever. So we'd be out there. He'd be on the block. He'd be doing whatever the hell he doing, having a trip, coming down, whatever. And it was still like, and I thought about him in my older years, and I brought this up because I think about, you know what I'm saying, how sweet he was. And yeah, Christopher did this Buttermilk Man with some, so you just roll off.
Chris,
but,
can we keep this serious real quick?
That was that man's name. But he was just, I found myself thinking about him often, just about how sweet and how kind, how personable. He would always talk to the kids, whatever, in his heart, through all that addiction, through all the bad, negative stuff, through whatever. That was just a good ass person. You know what I'm saying? Who was probably a great uncle, a great friend, a great whatever, probably babysat. You know what I'm saying? Just whatever. And I hate that the addiction crowds out a lot of the best parts about people that we don't get to see and appreciate because they just so deep in it.
And I think that's as we get to the end of this culture chop, because we definitely want to get to that last one. So we can lift this up a little bit. Well, actually, Chris did it. Like Buttermilk Man is a smooth ass. Man. Call me Buttermilk. You know what I'm saying? But shout out to him. I mean, because he probably don't get a lot of praise. I don't know if he's still around, but
smooth like buttermilk, baby.
You know what I'm saying? Like you getting shine today on the chop up. You know what I mean? Everybody deserve it. Buttermilk Man is getting it today, whatever his real name was.
Yeah.
But to cap off this snap chop, I mean, I think it's, or not snap chop, excuse me, culture chop. I think it's important to talk about where these conversations go left, because I'm really enjoying especially that story, Toya, and how the addiction was there, but in terms of the way that we perceive people, the addiction didn't define them, right? Like it was something that was there, was you wish better for people in those circumstances, but it didn't define them. But so I want to know from y'all perspective, where do these conversations go left? What do people get wrong when they talking about addiction? Yeah, go ahead, Toya.
Well, Lee, I mean, go ahead, Lee.
I was gonna just go with the New York Daily Times headlines yesterday, and just to me it seems as if the addictions are always racialized, with people that are racial. I feel like people of color that have addictions are always seen as the addiction. They're defined by the addiction. So we seen that big old colonizer married to their cousin, cool with Nazis. You feel me? Prince died, and it was like, beloved Prince dies. You feel me? For him, but then for DMX, it says something like troubled rapper, beloved, or they didn't say beloved, talented and troubled rapper also passes. And it was like, man, just to see the ways in which you talking about these two people, to me, that's where it goes left. It's how we start to make it where people are defined by their, you know what I'm saying, their actions. My grandmother, you feel me, what I'm saying, she was a whole lot more than somebody that battled, you know what I'm saying, drug addiction throughout my life, throughout her life and my life, you feel me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She was my grandmother. She was a person I was able to talk to, a person that we had talking about, you know what I'm saying, did a lot. She was a mother, she was a granddaughter, she did a lot of things, you feel me?
I mean, the people factor in this, I think, is the biggest thing. And I think that's what we continue to see in the comments, the lack of empathy and care. Jada says, when we talk about addiction as a choice instead of a sickness, a chemical imbalance. Christopher says it's easy. They forget that we are talking about humans. There is no humanity in general discussions of addiction. It's just stigmatized from the jump, right out the gate. Jaleesa even says that the addiction is a choice and not a disease. And that's what is missing, right? Is recognizing. I think when we think about people are like, yeah, kids, why you couldn't do it for your kids? You got this, why you can't do it for this? You had all this opportunity, you had all the fame, all the money in the world, why you couldn't just stop to go and get this? And what you forget is that this is psychological, it's mental, and it literally is physical. Things start to change, imbalances, deteriorations, all types of things that stop your ability to think logically.
Like a biological and chemical reaction takes place in the brain where it requires, in order to function. That's
the phrase "easier said than done" is what pops into my head. Right? We have broken technology. We'll have a TV that doesn't work, and computer that doesn't work, and to verbalize the problem is easy. The screen just won't come on. The volume is messed up. It won't do what it's supposed to do. The color is off. Well, it's so easy to describe the issue, but you get your ass in there and change it. You get in there and take the top off, take the cover off, deal with the hard wiring, not really understand the way that the intersystems and the networks work. You do it. Right? Explaining and describing the issue is easy. And maybe even the solution is easy to you too, but to do the work, you know what I'm saying?
Do the work.
Done. And I think when you lead with that and you guide with that, that's where your compassion to kick in, where you recognize that what you're talking about is not as just easy as saying, well, I'm not going to spend no money over there today, or I'm going to stop eating out, or I'm going to stop. And those are addictions in them of themselves that people that are real, that people struggle with. You know what I'm saying? We talk about addiction and we framed it in terms of drugs specifically, but it's a whole lot of people in the addiction of buying shit for the sake of buying it. COVID gave you that. Food. You know what I'm saying? Eating and consumption of alcohol, consumption of food, overconsumption of social media. Those are addictions, y'all. You probably watching this because we hitting the spot for you. We tickling the itch. We scratching the itch for you in terms of your addiction to social media. Right? So
y'all can be addicted to the chop up though.
I mean, which is not wrong, but you leave your phone at home all day. Yeah. You go without eating hot fries for a whole week or stopping at Chick-fil-A. You know what I'm saying? And then figure out what that shit starts to look like for you. It's not easy. It's just washing your hands with it and walking away. And that is why we've got to sit with some things a little bit longer and be more realistic about what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think y'all touched on some great things as we close.
I said Chick-fil-A and Thorough Beauty said I was on the street. What's up? I'm on the street.
I mean, I think y'all touched on some great things. I think, like, again, humanity, compassion, these are all things that are necessary, are requirements, baseline when you're dealing with people dealing with addiction. But then you also got to understand that when we dealing with, especially when you're talking about Black people, there's always a desire to escape reality. Because the lived experiences, that we endure, create those circumstances. I mean, because I think even like with certain type of weed consumption, people argue. You know what I'm saying? It has to do with moving away from, like, that coping mechanism, right? And that's what's underestimated, because I think the compassion and the remembering that we dealing with people is the baseline. But then as you start to look at communities and why they deal with addiction, the way that they deal with addiction, trauma plays a large role in how people choose and why people choose drugs in order to cope. Because a lot of just like living it, you know what I'm saying? Like, just it's not bearable. And that's something that we all have to recognize. Now because our lives may be what they are, but if you haven't been in a position where you feel like life, you just can't be in it without X. You really can't. I mean, because it's a mind thing. All of our minds are different, and what we're able to endure and what we're able to deal with, it changes from person to person. And when we start to assume that just because I can do X, that everybody else should be moving in the same fashion and category that I am, that's the mistake we make. That's where you start to lose that compassion, because you want everybody to be you, as opposed to letting people be who they are and then helping them get through the circumstances that they're dealing with. So, I mean, I appreciate that we was able to have this conversation. It is unfortunate that we have to, that the foundation that we had this conversation on is losing a hip hop legend. Yeah, like DMX. You know what I'm saying? That's one of them things that's one of them conversations you don't really expect to have, but we're here, and ultimately, hopefully, somebody is able to get through what they dealing with by listening to DMX and listening to people talk about his life and what he meant and who he was, even though like when it came to this battle, this is how it ended.
Yeah.
So yeah, y'all got anything else?
Let's not ever forget that looking at and I think Denario gets to this, looking at addiction as a health issue is new and is really mostly accessible to white people. So don't forget that as we are figuring out and trying to catch up with the layers of these conversations, there are structural pivots and changes happening, but they are happening on the behalf of people who don't necessarily look like us. So we can't do the work of the system for it. We ought not criminalize people who are subject to systems where they're already being criminalized for things they can't control. We got to think bigger and more boldly about dealing with these things, and have a stand up or just a face to face conversation with us as a society and how we enable people to fall subject to the things that constrain them. Things to think about.
Right. Oh yeah, just real quick. And if it wasn't said simply, we're gonna add it simply just so anybody watching it. The criminalization of addiction is a part of what fucks up the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we can look at what happened during the crack epidemic is we wouldn't be real woke niggas if we didn't say this. And then we're gonna get on to the to that last chop. But the fact that there's a opioid pandemic or epidemic, but then there was, crack era, shows you how because black people dealing with crack and whatever it was, we was criminalized.
Yeah.
White people dealing with Oxycontin and hydrocodone, it's a health epidemic. Like, let's be for real here. Make sure that when you talking about addiction, you're not playing into the criminalization of a people. Let's move on.
Rest in peace, Dark Man X.
Yeah, man. Let's go, Conscious League. I got y'all mixed up. Toya G. Because I said George. Oh, I said Toya opening when George was opening and Toya closed it. Go ahead, Toya. I'm shutting up.
Shame on you. Well, actually, don't go too far political plug because I'm probably need your tap in here shortly. We are about to get into we'll call it the social chop, and specifically talk about the social in the context of COVID. This is a COVID-19 check-in. We haven't done a whole lot of those, mostly because the stories change too quickly. We never know really how people are doing from one state to the next, especially at this stage in it. So we want to kind of jump in. My first question to y'all, I have three, is about these stimmy checks. First, Damo, there is conversation about a fourth stimmy in the works. You know how the political conversations that are being had are taking shape. The big infrastructure bill just put out on the table to be deliberated and discussed last week. Mm-hmm. A lot of money flowing out of the government, it seems like. So, what do y'all think about a fourth stimmy? And do you think, political plug, that it is possible to be a reality?
Well, just real quick, it's becoming increasingly difficult because not all Democrats are on board. I think his name Joe Manchin, which is a Democrat that he's more one of the more moderate liberals, if you will. He's really a moderate centrist. I wouldn't even call him a liberal, but he is a Democrat. Since the Biden administration has started to do what it's trying to do, Manchin has been the key opponent on the Biden agenda, specifically when it comes to the infrastructure bill. So it depends on this one individual on whether or not we're gonna see these things shake. But we'll see the developments as they play, and then we'll have a political chop for y'all next week.
Lee, stimmy vibes.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie to you. Right now, I feel like I don't know what to expect because it's the first time I've heard about the fourth stimmy. So we're gonna see what happened. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna see what happened and how it happened. What's the dollar amount on that thing you heard?
I think they'll probably change a lot about it. So people who are eligible for a fourth stimulus, who are available or eligible for a third one, probably won't get a fourth one. But it's just on the table. From what I've heard, there's just a desire from it, right? The third stimmy was said to be unique and significant because it was potentially lifting people out of poverty. Was a lot of the rhetoric and language I heard around that third stimulus check. So a lot, but the conversation around the fourth one is that this could really create a push for people. And I don't know how, the thing that I understand about a lot of this rhetoric around how effective these stimulus checks have been is that I'm just not sure how, when you are in debt living at or below a poverty line, that $1,400 at a time is really radically changing your situation, especially if you haven't gained new employment, especially if you haven't are in places with shutdowns and lockdowns and stuff like that. Like it's kind of, I don't understand how that's changing and bringing people out of poverty, but I suppose that it is. And so if that's the case, Ring of Blaze said it's going to be $400, and I believe it. But if that's the case, I don't know. It's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard to predict. I haven't gotten my third stimulus check now yet, so I'm really kind of curious about even getting them and what that looks like, because I got the first two and got them on time. So I'm very curious about, as these potential rollouts come out, the possibilities of them. Moving on from a stimmy check. Second thing I want to check in with y'all about, we got somebody in Long Beach. I'm in Orange County. So those are two very different places in Southern California, even though they're next door to each other. A lot of times our processes and procedures don't move on the same pace. And then we have Oklahoma in the building, right? Normal Oklahoma with Lee. And so I want to know from y'all, talk to me about the things that have changed in your area recently. What have you seen, if anything? And y'all in the comments, let me know based on, and tell me where y'all from if y'all in the comments, but based on where y'all at, have y'all started seeing things change in y'all's communities, in y'all cities, in y'all states? And if so, what types of changes have you all been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you starting to see things open up more. I think restaurants are now, they're not open to full capacity, but they are open for indoor dining. I have seen indoor dining. For a lot of places, that has not changed. I know I visited Kansas a couple months ago. That motherfuckers was inside. You know what I'm saying? But for California, indoor dining has been something that has escaped us. I mean, we got, good weather, so we've been sitting on patios and shit, enjoying brunch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, from like November to February, people was able just to sit outdoors and eat their food outside until at least till the sun went down.
But seeing people eat inside is really the only noticeable difference that I've seen.
Yeah. Lee, what about you?
Man, here, by saying Oklahoma, I feel like it was already kind of the wild, wild west anyway, because it's, you know what I'm saying, it's Trump Nation, you feel me? So you had people kind of trying to comply, do the mask mandate, and you had the other half of the people that was like, I don't give a damn.
Yeah,
that's fake, this, that, and the other. So
just a little bit more people mingling and doing what they want to do. I know for me, I've been seeing a lot of traffic. California traffic is back. SoCal traffic is back, and it's ugly AF. People are out. They trying to be in the mix. They don't care. The lines is back. Everything's wrapped around everything. So that's the thing that I hate the most, because California, I think, was the most shut down. The difference in traffic, if you know anything about California traffic, SoCal traffic specifically, is foolish. And so back to an hour and 15 minutes to get somewhere. Back to, gas prices. Oh, what's up with y'all gas prices? Y'all gas prices crazy out there, Lee?
Yeah, gas prices is starting to go up a little bit now. They ain't crazy yet, but they starting to creep up. They starting to creep up slowly but surely. They starting to creep up slowly but surely. And too, I've noticed too that with the mixture of the stimulus check and things opening back up, I've noticed that a lot of prices has been a little uniquely higher than what they was a few weeks ago, a month ago. So,
And I don't understand the economy, because we talk about, supply versus demand, but we also have a demand. If you have a price and people want something, they're going to pay for it. I just think it's so trash that more people adding to the situation means you increase your prices. If more people come, it would seem like you can hold the line on some decent prices because you have more people consuming that shit. So you selling more units, you can keep it at a reasonable price. Increasing the prices is hella frustrating. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, it's
market gouging.
Man, basically is what it is. I want to make sure we talk to the people in the comments about what they've been up to.
Brianna,
traffic is back too. I was getting used to a shorter commute to work.
The LA traffic is back.
Yeah, you missed that.
LA traffic is back. Yeah, LA traffic is back.
Let's see. In Richmond, Virginia, VA places are open, but everything is still everything. Let me see.
You paid $4.17 for gas.
Gas is $4.70. How much is it out here? No, it's is it 4 or 3?
No, it's well at the airport. At the airport, it's like $4.19.
Yeah, it's maybe $3.76 or something down here. So it's always a little bit more expensive up in the Bay. That's crazy. Rings of Blaze said, I'm from Richmond. Oh, yeah, I already read that one. Let's see. Vance said, hella people traveling to places where things are more alive is what I noticed. Everyone on my timeline is in Florida or Vegas right now. Speaking of Vegas, Jada said folks is outside and these hotels are open and the pools are open. So I'm scared definitely because it ain't nobody running to a mask and then trying to get in the pool. Jaleesa in San Antonio, people are starting to stop wearing masks and starting to get closer. You know, Texas was the first state. Governor Abbott said, take that shit off and move around, do as you please. So I ain't even surprised that they, have taken out stuff, which is what I Am Just Dance talked about happening out there. And then let me see, Aaliyah Don, Virginia, people are so quick to try to be normal as possible, getting harder to have orders come to the house. Denario, I'm from Detroit. Our cases recently rose, and I've seen plenty of clubs open. Some areas would be serious about masks. It was in Michigan. Michigan is the state that had one of the biggest increases in coronavirus cases in the last week or so. Like they jumped with numbers they hadn't seen since early December or something crazy. So it's really wild to know that those numbers, and they were also one of the states that was the slowest on the vaccine rollout. The state with the largest Black population in the country, right? I think 70%, 80% of residents in the city of Detroit are Black, right? And so to have those dynamics there speaks to the racialization of how we deal with local issues, or national issues. Pinky Promise.
Hey, I seen the census that said Detroit is the blackest city in America.
Detroit is the blackest city in America.
I was like, damn. As a matter of fact, the top 10, Atlanta, Oakland, and DC Baltimore did not make the top 10. In Baltimore did not make the top 10. It was
Baltimore made it. Baltimore was 9, 8 or 9.
It was 9. I think you screenshot it.
But lots of shit going on. Jada said we just got our first confirmed case of the Brazil variant. So what the hell? Keeping in mind, and they're saying the reason why things have slowed down in California is because California has its own little variant that it's been popping around and kind of moving around, the California variant, which has 2 strains. So crazy shit going on. Everybody in y'all area, stay safe, commit yourself to comfortability, and do what only you can do. I get vaccinated on Thursday, complete my stuff, bing, bang, boom. I've already bought a plane ticket. I plan to buy more plane tickets. So do what you're comfortable with, but definitely make sure you mask up. I will say, I saw a snapshot of something from the New York Post, and I'm not here to, share propaganda, but the New York Post is a pretty visited site, so I'm gonna do some more research on it. But that somebody who took the Johnson & Johnson is in hospital with serious condition after taking the vaccine. So again, I'm not trying to spread misinformation. It's a headline I saw in passing. I want to read more about it, but just make sure y'all staying on y'all toes about the news and how it's affecting y'all's area. Last conversation I want to have with y'all, question I have is about returning to normal plans, right? Is there anything on your back to normal bucket list that you cannot wait to do now that shit is evening out a little bit more? Anything that you just I've been saving this one, and when I feel like the time is right, this is going to be my reintroduction back into the world? Anything?
No. Shit, I'm mad. We gotta get reintroduced to the world. Shit.
I'm looking forward to partying. You feel me? Having a good time with a group of people, and not having to be kind of in just being able to really. I mean, I still got to worry about the coronavirus, but
Trying to go to the club, George. Trying to hit the club.
I say the club. I feel like just having a nice little growing up get together gathering.
Yeah.
For a barbecue. I see a barbecue coming to my household soon. I got to convince my wife that we need to have company. She don't like having to go over.
It ain't the virus. It's just we don't need guests. Okay, keep on where they at.
Jada says she just want to hug her friends in different states. We know that's soft. That's okay to be soft. That's Absolutely. Okay to be soft. Don't ever, you know what I'm saying? Don't ever get yourself out of that. Aaliyah Dawn said going to museums. Okay, educational turn up. I feel you. You know what I mean? Tamika Mitchell said, nah, she ain't excited about shit.
No.
She was fine being in quarantine. I feel you. Me too. I was too. Shit. Theory of Beauty is we got another introvert. She said she's been introverted her whole life in private. I don't like groups often, and I was already quarantining before quarantine. See, y'all cheating. Y'all cheating.
Andrew got some smoke for you, Lee.
Who?
Andrew
Smith said, I want to travel and battle and lead in a dance battle. All the smoke. Pop lock.
Wow, Andrew, man. I'm working on my dance moves. I'm saying I'm knocking my rust off. So watch out. You feel me?
Be ready. Jaleesa, we miss you too. I definitely am excited to go link up at a debate tournament.
Right.
Like one of the most, I think that's gonna be my thing, and not for the sake of debate, but what I gotta understand is that people come and from different universities on campus across the country, and they come to one city, to one campus, and it's from niggas everywhere. And I really miss the ability to see my niggas from north, south, east, and west just come to one place and be like, "What's popping?" Like it's just really is something crazy.
George, the last cedar we was here. I mean, before this one, like, cause the last one, the last cedar was canceled. But the one before that, we was here. National championship winning coach, Conscious Lee. Y'all better stop sleeping on my man, dog.
Definitely.
Y'all better stop. 2019 was a wonderful year.
Yeah, man.
Last thing, I agree with Noel. I'm trying to go back to the movies myself. The movies are actually open to some limited capacity here in California. I'm not good.
I got an HBO Max login.
My nerves a little bad about that, but we gonna see, eventually about those things. Let me see. Basically, we got everybody in the comments. Whatever you decide to do it safely. Do it with confidence. You know what I'm saying? Be mindful of what's going on around you, making sure you're not percolating, jiggling, sharing, swapping things that, just make sure that as you move that you think
What is what are you about to be doing post-COVID?
Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. That's what I'm saying. Be safe while you do it. Whatever you want to do, how you do it. Bonus question before we go. And I know y'all tired, but real quick, what's one thing you'll never go back to doing once we go back to normal? What's one thing that you like, yeah, this is the COVID showed me this new shit. This is what I do now. I'm never going back to X habit. What is it? What is it? What's the one thing you have done?
I think it's movie theater. I'm done with that shit, bro.
No more movies?
No, I got HBO Max. I'm good.
Okay. No more movies, Lee? Anything for you?
Let me say it like this. I got an HBO Max login. So I say, let me be fair.
I feel like mine is like some superficial shit I didn't heard on the internet a lot, and how my mindset isn't changed, but how I want to survive and pay my bills, take care of my kids. So for me, it's just like, man, I'm no longer trying to exchange my time for money. You feel me? I'm trying to make the money work for me. I'm trying to figure out a way to sell some skills, sell some products, and goddamn, no, you cannot get me to sit at the work for this long or this long because I feel like you got my time. Like, nah, you don't. Yeah.
Right on. I would definitely say wearing masks whenever the fuck I feel like it will be a thing. Allergies, scratchy throat, I chew. We're gonna put it on and I'm gonna see you where I'm gonna see you.
My granny had my great grandmother, she had asthma. And she wore like the mask that people wear today. Like she would just carry one on her all the time because her asthma was that bad. So yeah.
Asia had been done showed us the cheat codes and we just really weren't rocking with them. We, was like, why are you wearing masks around? And they have air quality condition issues or whatever, but I think they were onto something. And so I think we should normalize when you feel sick, when you're not sure, when you don't know, but you still got stuff to do, put that damn mask on and do it with pride, do it with no shame. And you walk around and handle your business and make sure you washing and sanitizing, doing all those things. A couple more comments and then we'll close it out. Jada said they done passing the blunt. Which is real, you know what I'm saying? You got to draw the line somewhere. So bring your own or don't pull up. Not speaking on social injustices is something Andrew said is in the past, not going back. Aaliyah Don said they're not going back to Walmart. Stacy G Mix said no more shoulder to shoulder in the club.
Oh, George. That's Stacy G? That's Stacy
G. I think so, Stacy G.
What's up, boy?
Definitely.
What's good with you, boy?
Stacy G ain't lying though, because I will tell you, one of the worst feelings in the world on behalf of a woman in the club is walking past a nigga with that sweaty forearm. Like you can almost miss everything else, but you would get that nigga with the sweaty, this much skin from t-shirt, from elbow to wrist, and you be like,
you're looking at your wrist, like, hey, bro, I gotta go to the bathroom.
You do a lot of this, just trying to get that sensation away. Noel says, I want to go back to giving my time and energy to people that I don't want to give it to out of obligation. No more leaning close to hear somebody. No more buffets.
Damn, no more buffets. Damn, that shit was already unhealthy. I was cool. Like I was like, shit, this is already a risk.
That shout out to Stacy G for pulling in at the end of the conversation. Definitely dropping some solid suggestions about what we got to hang up. Shout out to everybody else who has participated in the coronavirus check-in. We want to make sure as we transition back, that we get ready for that. And one thing that bet not change about y'all is tuning in with us on Monday nights. We know y'all did it because y'all ain't had nowhere else to go and nothing to do during the quarantine. But if this is your shit, this is your shit now. So don't be trying to go nowhere once y'all get y'all business together. Keep your Monday nights open because we come to y'all with contents, with conversations, with discussions that y'all want to have and we want to have with you. So stick around and stay tuned with us.
And now, and if you just can't make it on a Monday, all you got to do is go to iTunes. Apple iPod. I said Apple iPod. I'm old. Apple. What's the product?
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast.
That's what Android, buddy.
That's what you Apple iPhone users use. Apple iPod podcast. Yeah. Everywhere else you get your podcast, you can find the Chop Up Show. Make sure y'all following us up on the Instagram at the Chop Up Show. If you are not subscribed to the channel on YouTube, it's the Chop Up Show. And really, our search engine optimization is key. It's on point. If you literally just put the Chop Up Show in YouTube,
come on, baby. Chop Up Show. Google us.
Find us. Yes. Make sure you leave a review wherever you listening to us. And then, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead, put that favorite, save, all of that. But I'm glad y'all was able to join the conversation with us. Glad we was able to get it in on another Monday. We will see y'all back here next Monday on the Chop Up. And y'all know we got to close it out the same way that we started. We out.
Me, my guys, we really live. Lord, forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside. And that's in the console. Keep the semi when I ride. Lit off Henny when I drive.